The day Earth's radio telescopes picked up the unusual signals started like any other. At first, the astronomers at the Global Space Monitoring Station thought their equipment was malfunctioning. The readings made no sense. Hundreds of massive objects were approaching the solar system at sublight speed. Chief astronomer Robert Miller stared at his coffee cup for a long moment before looking back at the screens. "Run the calculations again," he ordered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The younger scientists around him worked frantically, their fingers flying across keyboards. "Sir, the data is consistent. These are artificial structures, and they're decelerating," reported Anna, one of the senior analysts. "Size estimates suggest the smallest is about the length of Manhattan, and the largest," she paused, double-checking her figures, "is roughly the size of Ireland." Within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed the findings. A fleet of alien ships was approaching our solar system, and they were slowing down. The first transmission arrived 3 days later. The message was simple, a series of mathematical equations followed by images showing damaged ships and failing systems. Even without understanding their language, the meaning was clear. They needed help. World leaders gathered in an emergency session at the United Nations. The UN Secretary-General's face was grim as he addressed the assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face an unprecedented situation. Over 300 alien vessels carrying what we estimate to be millions of refugees are approaching Earth. Their ships are damaged, their resources are depleted, and they're asking for our help." The room erupted in chaos. Representatives argued about security risks, resource allocation, and the possibility of invasion. But everything changed when the aliens sent their next transmission, a detailed view of their fleet's condition. The images showed massive ships with huge tears in their hulls, makeshift repairs barely holding together. Power systems flickered dangerously, and entire sections of ships were dark and lifeless. Whatever had happened to them, it was clear they were running on borrowed time. Dr. James Wilson, head of the International Space Agency, presented his analysis to the Security Council. "These ships were designed for long-term space travel, but they've suffered catastrophic damage. Based on their current trajectory and speed, they'll reach our solar system in approximately 2 weeks. However," he paused, bringing up a new set of charts, "at least 30% of their vessels won't survive that long without immediate assistance." As the aliens drew closer, they shared more information. They were refugees from multiple species, fleeing from a devastating cosmic event, a massive surge of radiation from their home galaxy's core that had made their worlds uninhabitable. They had been traveling for years, using the last of their resources to reach the nearest habitable system, Earth. The alien fleet's chief engineer, who would later be known simply as Blue due to his luminescent skin color, managed to establish a basic communication channel with Earth's scientists. Through a combination of mathematics, physics equations, and simple diagrams, he explained their most critical problems: failing life support systems, depleted power cores, and structural damage that threatened to tear their ships apart. The situation became even more urgent when one of the smaller ships in the fleet suddenly lost power. The vessel, carrying 50,000 refugees, began to drift, its distress beacon broadcasting a desperate plea for help. This was no longer just a diplomatic crisis. It was a humanitarian emergency on an interstellar scale. Robert Miller, who had first detected the fleet, found himself working alongside military strategists and engineers as they rushed to develop a response plan. "We can't just let them die out there," he argued during one heated meeting. "This isn't just about them anymore. This is about who we are as a species. This is our chance to show what humanity is capable of." As the first alien ship's distress call echoed through Earth's communication systems, humans worldwide held their breath. The choice they made now would define their species' place in the galaxy. Would they turn away millions of refugees and watch them perish, or would they rise to perhaps the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced? The answer came from an unexpected source. Small fishing boats off the coast of Japan reported seeing strange lights in the sky, the first visual confirmation of the alien fleet entering the solar system. As photos spread across the globe, the debate shifted. These weren't just signals on a screen anymore. They were real, they were here, and they needed help. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin. The emergency meeting at the United Nations stretched into its third day. Dark circles under eyes and empty coffee cups littered the conference room as world leaders grappled with an impossible situation. How could Earth, with its limited space technology, possibly help a fleet of advanced alien ships? Even if we wanted to help, we don't have the technology, argued the Russian delegate, spreading his hands in frustration. Their systems are centuries ahead of ours. We can't even understand half of their technical specifications. The debate might have continued endlessly, if not for Jack Thompson. At 68 years old, Jack was a retired NASA engineer who had worked on everything from the space shuttle to modern rockets. When he heard about the aliens' plight, he drove straight to Washington, D.C., and refused to leave until someone listened to his idea. "You're all thinking about this wrong," Jack told the hastily assembled panel of experts. He pulled out a worn notebook filled with rough sketches. "We don't need to match their technology. We need to think like humans." Jack's plan was both brilliant and absurd. "Look at what we have," he said, pointing to satellite images of Earth's oceans. "Thousands of oil rigs, cargo ships, and floating platforms. We're not ready to repair their ships in space. Fine. Let's bring them down here." The room fell silent as Jack explained his concept. Using Earth's existing maritime infrastructure, they could create temporary floating cities. Oil rigs could be converted into docking stations. Cargo ships could be transformed into floating hospitals and living quarters. The ocean could provide both cooling for their damaged systems and a safe place to land. "It's crazy," said Admiral Thompson of the U.S. Navy. "It's also the only plan we've got." But the biggest challenge wasn't technical. It was political. Housing millions of aliens would strain Earth's resources. Some nations feared the refugees would never leave. Others worried about diseases or cultural conflicts. Then came the message that changed everything. One of the alien ships, carrying mostly children, lost its main power core. They had less than 48 hours before total system failure. In the UN chamber, the Chinese representative stood up. "My government pledges all available resources to this rescue operation," she announced. "We have ships. We have facilities. We will help." Other nations quickly followed. India offered its entire merchant fleet. The European Union promised emergency supplies. Brazil opened its ports. Russia and the United States agreed to share military resources for the rescue operation. Engineer teams worldwide began working around the clock. Oil companies rushed to convert their rigs. Shipyards transformed cargo vessels into floating hospitals. Space agencies prepared for the most ambitious rescue mission in human history. Jack's team focused on solving the immediate technical challenges. How do you safely land a ship the size of a small city? How do you connect alien life support systems to Earth's power grid? The solutions weren't pretty, but they were pure human ingenuity at work. "See this." Jack held up a simple water pump during one briefing. "Their cooling systems are failing. We'll cool them with seawater." Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. The aliens themselves were shocked by Earth's approach. Through their communications, they expressed surprise at humans using such primitive methods. But as Jack pointed out, primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Time was running out. The ship carrying the children was now showing signs of structural failure. Earth had to move fast, or thousands would die. The decision was made to attempt the first rescue immediately, using Jack's methods, despite the risks. "We're going to prove something today," Jack told the international rescue team. "We're going to show that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to tackle any problem with whatever tools we have and find a way to make it work." As preparation began for the first rescue attempt, A strange calm fell over Earth. Political differences were set aside. Resources were shared freely. Humanity had made its decision. They would save these refugees or die trying. The whole world watched as the first rescue ships left port, heading toward their rendezvous with the damaged alien vessel. Earth's response to its greatest challenge was about to be tested, and failure meant thousands of deaths. The rescue mission was now officially underway, and there was no turning back. The world had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of ships moved across Earth's oceans in perfect coordination. Converted oil rigs were being towed into position, and every available satellite was redirected to support the rescue operation. Operation Safe Harbor had begun. Captain Mary Roberts stood on the bridge of the converted container ship Hope, now the command center for the rescue fleet. Screens around her showed the positions of ships worldwide, all moving into predetermined positions based on Jack's plan. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "All Pacific units in position," came the first response. "Atlantic Fleet reports ready. Indian Ocean teams standing by." The responses continued, each confirmation bringing them closer to the most ambitious rescue mission in human history. The first target was the critically damaged alien ship carrying children. It had managed to enter Earth's orbit, but was losing altitude rapidly. Its hull was cracking, power systems failing, and life support running on emergency backup. "We've got movement," shouted one of the radar operators. "The alien vessel is beginning its descent. Trajectory tracking shows they're aiming for the Pacific landing zone." The massive ship, nearly 2 miles long, began its careful descent through Earth's atmosphere. The sight was breathtaking. An enormous vessel, parts of it glowing from heat, trailing sparks and debris as it fought against gravity. On the ocean below, 50 ships formed a perfect circle around the designated landing zone. Modified oil rigs, their platforms expanded and reinforced, waited to catch the massive vessel. Thousands of powerful pumps were ready to provide emergency cooling the moment the ship touched down. "They're coming in too fast." Jack's voice crackled over the radio from his position on one of the rigs. "Their landing thrusters are failing. We need to adapt. Now." Captain Roberts made a split-second decision. "All ships, execute Protocol Delta." "I repeat, Protocol Delta." The fleet moved like a single organism. Ships equipped with powerful water cannons began spraying massive streams of seawater into the air, creating a cushion of mist and reducing the ship's speed through air resistance. Others extended huge nets made from high-strength cables between them, ready to help absorb the impact. The alien ship hit the water with a sound like thunder. Massive waves rolled out in all directions, but the human fleet held steady. The nets strained but held, helping to slow the vessel. Water cannons immediately began cooling the superheated hull. "Life signs stable," came the report from the medical ships. "Their containment fields are holding. Hull integrity at 40% but stabilizing." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Teams of engineers in protective suits boarded the alien vessel, working alongside the ship's crew to stabilize critical systems. The sight of humans using simple hand tools to repair advanced alien technology would have been comical if the stakes weren't so high. But it worked. The ship was secured, its passengers safe, and the floating platform network held steady. Humanity had just proved that Jack's crazy plan could succeed. More alien ships began their descent, each one handled with increasing efficiency as humans learned from each landing. The oceans of Earth were becoming home to the most extraordinary refugee camp in history. The aliens were amazed by human adaptability. They watched in wonder as humans used simple physics and basic tools to solve problems their advanced technology couldn't handle. When one ship's anti-gravity failed, humans simply attached huge airbags to keep it afloat. A solution so simple it left the aliens speechless. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," Jack said, watching another successful landing from his command post. "We might not have fancy technology, but we know how to get things done." But the operation was far from over. Hundreds more ships waited in orbit, many in critical condition. The rescued aliens needed food, medical care, and shelter, and Earth's resources were already stretching thin. Captain Roberts looked at the latest reports with concern. They were managing so far, but could they really save everyone? And even if they could, how long could Earth support millions of alien refugees? As if in answer to her thoughts, the radar operator called out again, "Captain, 3 more ships beginning descent procedures, and we're detecting a massive solar energy spike heading our way." The rescue operation was about to face its greatest challenge yet. The warning klaxons blared across the rescue fleet. 5 more alien ships had just reported complete power failures in orbit. Each vessel carried thousands of refugees, and their life support systems were failing fast. "How long do they have?" Tom Baker, the fleet's chief engineer, demanded as he studied the emergency readings. 2 hours at most, came the response from the orbital monitoring station. "Their containment fields are collapsing. If we don't get them down soon, we'll lose everyone aboard." The situation was dire. The fleet had already pushed its resources to the limit, rescuing the first wave of ships. Equipment was wearing out, crews were exhausted, and they were running dangerously low on supplies. "We can't reach all 5 ships in time," someone said. "Not with conventional methods." Tom looked out at the ocean, where dozens of alien vessels now floated on massive platforms. Then his eyes caught something. A cargo ship still loaded with shipping containers. "Get me Jack on the line," he said, an idea forming. "And I need every empty shipping container we can find." Jack listened to Tom's plan and laughed. "Using shipping containers as emergency escape pods. That's either brilliant or insane." "Both," Tom replied. "But it's all we've got." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would launch the containers into orbit using modified rockets. The aliens would transfer their most vulnerable passengers into the containers, which would then be guided back to Earth using parachutes and flotation devices. Like a space-age lifeboat, Tom explained to the skeptical alien commanders. "Your ships are failing anyway. This gives us a chance to save everyone." The aliens, desperate and out of options, agreed. Within minutes, every available ship began offloading its containers. Engineers worked frantically to outfit them with basic life support systems, parachutes, and tracking beacons. The first launch was terrifying. The container, carrying 30 alien children and their caretakers, shook violently as it rose through the atmosphere. Everyone held their breath until the tracking system confirmed successful orbital insertion. "First container has reached the target ship," the control room announced. "They're beginning passenger transfer." More containers followed. Each successful launch gave them hope, but time was running out. The failing ships were now showing signs of structural collapse. "We're not going to make it," someone said as the 4th hour of rescue operations stretched on. "There are still too many people up there." That's when the aliens themselves surprised everyone. Using the last of their power, they began performing emergency transfers between ships, consolidating their remaining passengers onto the most stable vessels. "They're sacrificing their ships to save their people," Jack observed. "They're learning from us." The rescue operation continued through the night. Container after container made the journey up and down, each one carrying precious cargo. The human fleet worked tirelessly, fishing the containers out of the ocean and transferring the refugees to safety. Some containers missed their targets. Others had parachute failures. But the human crews adapted, using helicopters for mid-air recoveries and emergency sea rescues. Every failure taught them something new, made them faster, more efficient. As dawn broke over the Pacific, the last container splashed down. Against all odds, they had done it. Over 10,000 aliens had been saved using nothing more than modified shipping containers and human determination. The aliens were stunned. Their advanced technology had failed them, yet humans had succeeded using what they considered primitive equipment. It challenged everything they thought they knew about technological progress. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Tom said, watching as the last group of refugees was brought aboard the medical ships. We didn't try to match their technology. We just used what we had in new ways. But there was no time to celebrate. Even as the rescue teams caught their breath, new alarms were sounding. The solar energy spike they had detected earlier was growing stronger, and its implications were becoming clear. All ships, prepare for emergency operations. Captain Roberts' voice came over the radio. We've got a solar flare heading our way, and it's bigger than anything we've seen before. The race against time wasn't over. It was about to enter its most dangerous phase yet. The solar flare was massive, the most powerful ever recorded. The initial data made even seasoned scientists pause in shock. This wasn't just a normal solar event. It was a direct threat to every ship and platform in the rescue fleet. Impact in 4 hours, announced the Space Weather Monitoring Station. The radiation burst will be followed by a plasma wave that could knock out every electronic system on Earth's side of the solar system. The news hit the command center like a physical blow. They had just rescued thousands from failing ships in orbit. And now this. The alien vessels, still recovering from their landings, were especially vulnerable. Their advanced systems were highly sensitive to electromagnetic disruption. Tom stood at his workstation, his mind racing through possibilities. The alien shields were down, their power systems barely functioning. The human fleet's electronics weren't much better off after the strain of continuous rescue operations. We can't move them, he said, looking at the massive alien ships floating on their platforms. And we can't shield them. Not in time. That's when an odd memory struck him. Years ago, he'd read about an old military technique called degaussing, using copper cables to protect ships from magnetic mines. It was primitive technology dating back to World War II. But, get me all the copper wired you can find, he shouted, already running toward the supply ships. And I need every electrician and engineer who can still stand. The plan was crazy, but they were running out of options. They would wrap the platforms and critical sections of the alien ships in massive copper coils, creating a makeshift Faraday cage. It wouldn't stop everything, but it might be enough to protect the most vital systems. This is prehistoric technology, one of the alien engineers said, watching humans manually wrapping huge cables around their ship's hull. Sometimes prehistoric works, Tom replied, not stopping his work. Your ancestors must have faced similar problems before they had advanced technology. How did they survive? The alien was quiet for a moment, then called several of his crew to help with the cables. The hours passed in a blur of activity. Every available hand was put to work. Humans and aliens worked side by side, racing against the approaching storm. Ships that still had working engines were moved to the far side of the floating platforms, using their hulls as additional shields. Impact in 30 minutes, came the warning. All personnel, get to shelter immediately. The sky was already changing color, taking on an eerie reddish tinge. Compass needles began spinning wildly, and radio communications became increasingly static-filled. We're not going to make it, someone said, looking at the still exposed sections of the alien ships. That's when the aliens showed they had learned something about human improvisation. Using pieces of their own damaged hull plating, they created reflective barriers, angling them to deflect the incoming radiation. Everyone below decks, Captain Roberts ordered as the first wave of radiation approached. Brace for impact. The initial hit was like nothing anyone had ever experienced. The sky turned purple, then white. Electronic devices sparked and died. The ocean itself seemed to glow with an inner light. But in the protected areas beneath the copper shields, the equipment kept running. The makeshift Faraday cages, combined with the alien hull plating, were actually working. Hours passed as wave after wave of radiation and plasma washed over the fleet. Teams worked continuously to repair failures and maintain the shields. Humans and aliens together fought to keep their power systems running, their life support functioning. When the storm finally passed, the damage was severe but not catastrophic. The copper coils were melted in places, and many systems would need repairs, but they had survived. "I don't understand," one of the alien leaders said, examining the simple copper cables that had saved their lives. "Our most advanced shields failed against similar radiation in our home system. How did this primitive technology succeed?" Tom smiled, too tired to stand but satisfied. "Sometimes the old solutions are the best solutions. We may not have your technology, but we've been surviving disasters since before we had any technology at all. It's what humans do." But as the cleanup began, new challenges emerged. The solar storm had damaged more than just their ships. Earth's own infrastructure had taken a hit, and they still had hundreds of alien vessels waiting in orbit. The crisis wasn't over. It had only changed form. In the aftermath of the solar storm, something unexpected began to happen. As humans and aliens worked together to repair their damaged chips and systems, barriers started breaking down. The shared experience of survival had created a bridge between species. On Platform 7, now nicknamed Exchange Point by the crews, an unusual scene played out. John, a human mechanic, sat with 3 aliens around a makeshift table, trying to explain the concept of duct tape. "Look," he said, demonstrating on a damaged pipe. "It's not pretty, but it holds. Sometimes that's all you need." The aliens watched in fascination as the simple adhesive tape sealed the leak perfectly. In return, the aliens shared their knowledge. They were amazed by human creativity, but had their own innovations to offer. Their understanding of energy systems, though currently damaged, was centuries ahead of Earth's technology. "Your methods are unexpected," said the alien engineer everyone called Blue, watching humans repair complex systems with basic tools. "We would never have considered such solutions. Yet they work." The learning went both ways. Humans discovered that alien technology, while advanced, was often overly complex. The aliens had become so dependent on automated systems that they'd lost some basic problem-solving skills. Meanwhile, the aliens were fascinated by humanity's ability to improvise and adapt. On the medical ships, another kind of exchange was taking place. Human doctors and alien healers worked together, learning each other's methods. The aliens had incredible diagnostic tools, but were amazed by the human practice of preventive medicine. "You mean you try to stop diseases before they happen?" asked an alien medical officer. "We always focused on cures, not prevention." The biggest surprise came in the field of mathematics. While working on power distribution problems, human engineers discovered that alien mathematics was based on a completely different framework. Neither system was superior. They were just different approaches to understanding the universe. "It's like learning a new language," said Dr. Linda Martinez, a mathematician working on the integration team. "Their math tells the same story as ours, just with different words." Food became another point of connection. The aliens were physically capable of eating Earth food, and shared meals became common. They were particularly fascinated by the concept of cooking. The idea of deliberately transforming food for better taste was new to them. "You mean you change the molecular structure of nutrition for pleasure?" one alien asked, watching a cook grill fish. After trying it, they understood. Even entertainment found a way across the species barrier. Aliens were introduced to human music, art, and stories. They shared their own cultural expressions in return. Some of the alien children began learning human games, while human children were fascinated by alien puzzle-solving techniques. "They think so differently," observed Tom, watching an alien child solve a complex mechanical puzzle. "But in the end, we all want the same things: safety, knowledge, connection." The most profound changes were psychological. Both species had to confront their preconceptions. Humans had imagined advanced aliens would have solutions to all problems. The aliens had assumed their superior technology made them more advanced in all ways. Both were wrong, and both were right. "We thought we needed bigger computers, better machines," Blue admitted during a late-night repair session. "But watching humans work, Sometimes the best technology is the technology you understand completely. The aliens began incorporating human-style manual controls and backup systems into their repairs. Humans started adapting alien energy distribution principles to their power grids. It was a perfect blend of high technology and practical solutions. But it wasn't all technical exchange. Personal friendships formed. Humans and aliens began to understand each other's humor, share stories of their homes, and discuss their hopes and fears. "Maybe this is the real rescue," Captain Roberts said, watching the activity on her ship. "Not just saving lives, but learning from each other, making both our species stronger." The cultural exchange was transforming both societies. But as the weeks passed, a new question arose. What would happen when the alien ships were fully repaired? Would they leave, taking their knowledge with them? Or was this the beginning of something more permanent? The answer would soon become clear, but not in a way anyone expected. 6 months had passed since the first alien ship entered Earth's atmosphere. What had started as an emergency rescue operation had evolved into something far more significant. The floating cities, originally meant to be temporary, had become thriving centers of interstellar cooperation. On the command platform of what was now called Unity Station, Captain Roberts stood with Blue, watching the sunrise over a changed Earth. Dozens of alien ships floated on their platforms, now properly repaired and modified with hybrid technology that combined the best of both worlds. The last refugee ship landed safely yesterday, Blue said, his luminescent skin glowing softly in the morning light. "All our people are finally safe." But the real story wasn't about the rescue anymore. In the months of working together, humans and aliens had created something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of their technologies and methods. The aliens' advanced power systems had been simplified and strengthened with human-style redundancies. Human ships now carried modified versions of alien navigation equipment. Each species had filled in the other's blind spots, creating technologies that were both sophisticated and reliable. "The Council has made their decision," Blue announced, turning to face Captain Roberts. "We want to stay." The news spread quickly across the floating cities. The aliens, rather than departing once their ships were repaired, were proposing a permanent alliance. Their knowledge of space travel combined with human adaptability could open up the galaxy for both species. In the engineering bay, Tom and his alien counterparts were already drawing up plans for the future. "See, we take the basic design of a human spacecraft," he explained, pointing to his diagrams, "but we integrate your power systems and our backup controls, the best of both worlds." The results were impressive. The first test ship, built jointly by human and alien engineers, combined alien technology's power with human ingenuity's reliability. It was faster than anything humanity had built before, yet simple enough for human crews to maintain. But the greatest changes were cultural. Schools had opened where human and alien children learned together, each gaining unique perspectives from the other. Medical facilities combined both species' healing techniques, leading to breakthroughs in treating diseases and injuries. "We thought we were rescuing you," Jack said to a group of alien engineers. "But in the end, you helped rescue us from our own limitations. We were so focused on reaching the stars, we forgot there might be other ways to get there." The aliens had learned equally valuable lessons. Their reliance on advanced technology had made them vulnerable when that technology failed. Human adaptability and ingenuity had shown them a different path. In a historic session at the United Nations, representatives from both species signed the Interstellar Cooperation Treaty. Earth would become the headquarters of a new alliance, combining alien knowledge with human resourcefulness to explore the galaxy together. "This isn't just about space travel," the UN Secretary General declared. "This is about two species discovering that they're stronger together than apart." Construction began on permanent structures, not just floating cities, but orbital stations and lunar bases. The aliens shared their knowledge of terraforming, while humans taught them about preserving natural environments. Together, they started planning missions to distant stars. In orbit, the first joint species space station took shape. It was built using alien technology, but incorporated human-style manual controls and backup systems. It would serve as a stepping stone for future exploration missions. Captain Roberts stood on her bridge one last time, preparing to hand over command to her successor, a joint human-alien team. "When we first spotted your ships," she said to Blue, "we thought we were just mounting a rescue mission. We never imagined we were actually building a bridge between our species." Blue's skin pulsed with agreeing lights. Perhaps that is why it worked so well. Neither of us was trying to prove superiority. We were just trying to survive, and in doing so, we found something greater. As the sun set on another day on Earth, ships of both species moved smoothly through the sky. On the platforms below, humans and aliens worked side by side, no longer as rescuers and refugees, but as partners in a grand adventure. The rescue mission was over, but humanity's greatest journey was just beginning. Together, they would reach for the stars, not as separate species, but as one united force, proving that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from technology, but from the simple act of helping others in need. The end.